Hey listeners, it's AZ. Quick reminder, this is your last chance to get registered for the June round of 7-Minute Science. I'll put the link in the show notes. It's free. You'll get a recording if you do not attend live, but I'm telling you, you're going to want to attend live. And as has been my MO for the last few podcast episodes, I am not recording an episode number because I am pre-recording a whole bunch of episodes prior to my move. And so I don't want to have a snafu where an episode is misnumbered. So today's guest is, I believe, my fourth Canadian guest, fifth if you count both of Scott Forbes' episodes. But Becky Swan is an amazing athletic therapist. That would be an athletic trainer in the US, but in Canada, they call them athletic therapists. She was with the Vancouver Police Department for a number of years, recently has just accepted a position with West Vancouver. And we had such a great conversation. And you might be saying, AZ, this is police. This doesn't pertain to us. I promise it pertains to you if you're a fire agency. We also had a wonderful discussion about trauma-informed care and how important it is to have that knowledge. So without further ado, here is my friend, Becky Swan.
Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive.
Have time constraints? Because I try to keep like 45 minutes, hour at the most. 30 minutes is fine. But if you're like rocking and rolling, I can keep going.
I am here. Yeah, it's my day off, and I got all my errands done this morning, so there's no time restraints on my side.
Incredible. Tell me about your errands. I'm just curious because sometimes I think my errands are weird compared to normal people. Tell me more.
Nothing too exciting. So getting into the long weekend here. So we're going to go away tomorrow. So got groceries, got alcohol.
Of course.
And then renewed my car insurance. So, it's wonderful. And then try to renew my driver's license, and they're not taking walk-ins. So I had to reschedule that. But otherwise, yeah.
Okay.
Not a fun day.
I don't know what you call it there in Canada, but DMV is what we call it here. And it is horseshit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I booked an appointment for next Friday. So it's all set. Yeah.
All right. You are joining an illustrious group of, well, first of all, like your girls, Anna August, Tracy Tuffner.
They're so awesome.
Aren't they swell? I mean, they're just amazing.
They're so awesome.
But you're joining an illustrious group of Canadians because I hope I don't forget anyone. I'll be so mad. Scott Forbes, twice, actually. Dr. Creatine, twice. Joel Krentz. They're both at Brandon University. Wendy Lund, who is a wellness kind of like mindfulness person. She's amazing. And now you. Illustrious group of Canadians.
I've made the first 5, maybe.
Yes, unless I forgot someone, but I don't think I did. Also, I'm visiting Canada coming up. Very excited.
I know, and I have it here because I just had to clear up my weekends. I am registering after this. Not because of this, but registering. I just had to get my schedule all lined up. So I will be seeing you.
Yay. That's amazing.
Yeah. Have you been in Vancouver before?
I have not. I've been to Brandon. I was like a guest lecturer at Brandon. And then after that, we left and went to Regina, which I used to think was called Regina, and for like a seminar there. But that's the extent mostly of my Canadian travel.
This is a more beautiful area. I'm biased, but I love the West Coast. Hopefully it's clear for you.
Here's the thing. I, right now, as we're speaking, still live in the Chicago suburbs. And I am tremendously spoiled because when I want to go to national conference, like it's a direct flight. When I want to go to almost anywhere, it's a direct flight. By the time I have to go to, or get to go to Canada, I should say get to go to Canada, I'm already going to be relocated to Oklahoma. Nothing is a direct flight. from Oklahoma.
Really?
It
Well,
sucks.
I guess, from Oklahoma. Okay. I see what you're saying there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I can get to Chicago, I can get to Dallas or whatever, but I cannot. Okay. So, long story short, I have to fly into Bellingham. Belling, is that how you say it?
Yeah. That's one of the airports I fly out of because I'm right on the border. So we'll go over there to get gas and groceries or fly out for cheap and stuff. Yeah. So
Are
I'm
you really
yeah,
close?
very, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. We might have to negotiate because I need a ride.
Oh, yeah.
And
What day?
I'm getting there the Friday before.
Yeah.
And Catherine, the state and provincial coordinator, she's like trying to coordinate me a ride, but at this point it's getting kind of awkward.
I should have that day off because Fridays are my day off. And yeah, we're just right across the border. So, and I have my Nexus. So that means I get to jump the line going down. So for me to get across the border is very quick and easy. So we can talk about this.
Okay. Is it bad to get back across the border? Because I just have a regular passport.
No, it won't be too bad. But then for me, like for timing wise, it won't be bad. And I can go, depending on the arrival of your flight, go do things I've been wanting to do in Bellingham. So it works out well. Gives me a good reason to go to Bellingham. So yeah, we can set that up.
Catherine's going to be so excited.
What about getting back? What day?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't know what I'm going to do because I have to leave. In order to not have to stay an extra day, I have to leave at like noon or something on Sunday.
Okay.
So we're still working through that. Worst case scenario, I know the shuttle didn't work on the way up, but maybe it'd work on the way back. I don't know. So we'll figure it out. Hitchhiking always works.
Well, let's plan me picking you up and getting you there.
I will totally buy you dinner, lunch, whatever. Breakfast, brunch. I don't care. Oh my gosh. Okay. We've been speaking total nonsense, but I'm so excited to talk about health and wellness stuff. Are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Listeners, as you've already heard, because I don't think I'm going to cut any of that out. That was all good shit. Listeners, as you've already heard, Becky Swan is my fourth Canadian guest. So Scott Forbes, Scott Forbes twice, Joel Krentz, Wendy Lund, and Becky Swan. And I'm going to let Becky do her own introducing because I'm totally lazy, but I'm going to ask good questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Hot, shiny light bulb question. Who is Becky Swan?
Hey, who is Becky Swan? It's so weird to say that. Lifelong learner. And I just say that because I know a lot of officers make fun of me with my collection of letters behind my name, as many of us have. And so, yeah, might be obsessed with learning, but yeah, learner, super curious about anything from the way people think to just how bigger pictures connect. And so that's more, I guess, how I function and what I see for myself. Outdoor lover, so I'm always in the forests or down at the ocean anytime I can get outside, especially in the forests here. Hopefully we can get you in the forests when you're here. Yeah, that's my home. So unfortunately I have to work in the office sometimes, right? But that's who I am away from the labels of work and all of that. So learner and just outdoor nut. Yeah.
I love it. Now I want you to give me all the labels. I'm a collector of certifications too. It's a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
But give me all the labels and all the job descriptions now. I want to hear that.
Okay. Do you want to hear the process of building it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go with that. So, it all goes back to when I was 6 years old.
Shut up. Really?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. We were a big skiing family and, loved attention, right? It was one of those, like, I want all the attention on me. And we were skiing one day and we're skiing with my first grade teacher and she broke her leg. And I saw all the attention she got from being wrapped up in the sled, taken down and all of that. And after that, I was like, well, I want a broken leg. Like she has a cast and everything. And so told my parents about this. And April Fool's Day comes around and we're skiing at this small hill way up north in BC. And I fall down and can't use my leg. And I was on my own. This is how small town it was. And so people found me, brought me to my parents. I'm like, I can't move my leg. They're like, we do this every weekend. You make us take you to the ski patrol because you're convinced that you've broken something. They're like, no, you haven't. I'm like, no, I have. And so they refused the ambulance, but they agreed for them to put a splint on my leg. And my mom said when she was driving me to the hospital, I was singing in the back seat because I was so excited. And she just was angry. It was a family weekend and thought I ruined it. And turns out I broke and dislocated my kneecap. So I was in surgery that day and had an ankle to hip cast. And so that's what I'll use for goal setting sometimes, is you always have to tell people what your goals are and just be determined to get it, whichever way it is, right? So learning the process early on. And after that, I just loved tensors and casts and crutches so much. I went through 4 casts in 6 weeks because I was doing everything and anything in them. And it wasn't until we moved a few years later that my parents convinced me to throw them away. So every cast that was cut off, I kept the pieces of it. This little 6-year-old ankle to hip cast. And that's what I would play with all the time. So that's where the spark with injuries really, really started, right? So a little
I can't
foreshadowing
breathe.
there.
I'm laughing so hard I can't breathe. And you too can break your leg if you just put it out to the universe.
Totally, right? Yeah, just make sure people know what your goals are and just learn as much about it as you can. Celebrate your successes.
Oh my God. Okay, so you successfully broke your leg. You went through
Yeah,
4 casts. And
yeah.
then what?
Yeah, so that's when continued with sports. So I was a competitive skier throughout high school and everything from slalom to downhill. When I transitioned to university, I stepped away from skiing, but then became a university level rugby player. So played at my University of British Columbia, and actually played a year in New Zealand on exchange as well. Yeah, so played down there. We had a couple All Blacks in our club too, so that was a highlight for me when I was down in New Zealand. And down there, I was on the ski team there. When I finished my undergrad at UBC, I went and did my athletic therapy one and was an athlete there as a skier as well. So I had a couple of those. But when I was in that first degree is when I found out about athletic therapy. And I was like, okay, yeah, this seems more interesting to me than physio because I can do some of the emergency management when you're helping with that initial break, not just the rehab. So I got my kin degree. And I got then my athletic therapy degree. And when I first chose which school to go to, in Canada, we don't have as many options here. There's a small handful. And I really wanted to work football. So I chose one based on the fact that they had a scholarship with a CFL football team and decided to put all my eggs in one basket, try there. And I actually got the one spot for that scholarship. So I got to work with the Hamilton Tiger Cats for a year during my AT schooling. So that was exciting. But sometimes when you're exposed to stuff, you realize, I like it, but what else is out there, right? And so when I finished my athletic therapy degree, I moved out west back home because that's where the mountains are and I need my mountains. And within weeks, I got hired by our women's national soccer teams. So our senior team needed somebody and I stepped into that role. Somehow that was super lucky and just knowing the right people at the right time and then being curious, right? That was one thing that they wanted. They had therapists before that wouldn't listen to some of the older therapists as much. And so they liked how curious I was and just open to learning. And they kept me on for quite a while. And then I left that in 2013, but I had overlap with the police department. So in 2010, I saw a posting for the fitness coordinator at the Vancouver Police Department. And my dad's a retired RCMP officer. So he's a Mountie or was a Mountie. And I thought, oh, well, it's a stable job, right? You start thinking, oh, stability, pension.
You're such an
I don't have to work.
adult.
Totally. I don't have to worry about, fluctuating paychecks. I was like, oh, I'll try this out. And I honestly thought it'd be a year or two, just a stepping stone to something else. And hook, line, and sinker in love with officers, right? There's something about the personalities and working with them that after a few years, I no longer was juggling working for the police department and with the women's national senior and U20 soccer teams. I stepped away from that and went 100% into focusing on police officers. And that's when I decided to do my master's in rehabilitation science that focused on police officer wellness as well. So those are some of the letters behind the name.
Amazing. And I just want to clarify for me,
Yeah.
an athletic therapist is that the equivalent of an athletic trainer in the US or is it different?
Yes.
Okay.
It's equivalent. So we can write each other's exams and get certified in each other's country. Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
I want to dig a little bit more into the introduction And then I want to dig into the police, because right now my listeners are like, police, who cares? We care because
Yeah.
we want to learn from as many different people and as many different models as we possibly can.
Yeah.
All right. So now we know who you are. I want to know, other than breaking your own damn leg, what sets your soul on fire?
I'm a helper through and through, right? So when you learn that you've made a difference in someone's life, whether it's even seeing that smile when you open up a door for somebody. I remember like the campus at UBC is really big. And in the morning, I'd play a game with myself as I'd be walking through, and I'd smile at everyone I'd see and see how many smiles I could get back in return, right? Just one of those like, okay, if you can get a spark in somebody's day, that's great. And so doing that with police officers where I find out I've made a difference, or an athletic therapist trying to learn where they want to go in their path. Just those little nuggets. It doesn't have to be a huge, big change, but every little tiny change I can have in somebody's life, or just a positive impact, it gets me excited. And then meeting other people like myself, like Tracy, Anna, yourself, where we just want to help and improve for everybody, then I get really nerdy about that because collaborating is just great, right? And I find the tactical realm, everybody is just eager to work together. And how can we improve things? So yeah, that just gets me excited, the thoughts of helping and growing.
It's such a cool field, because my friend Shante, I stole this from her, and I don't know if she stole it from someone else, but she says collaboration, not competition. And I think in many other realms, that's not the case, but it is the case. And police, fire, military, first responders, absolutely the case. I love it.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to try that smiling thing, but listen, the resting bitch face game is strong with this one. And so when I try to smile at people, it comes off kind of weird. So I'm going to try that though tomorrow. See how many people I can get to smile. I'm presenting at an M.R.Sc clinic. That's the perfect time to do it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
I will report back.
Yeah. And I find it's different too, right? Different locations, you'll get different smiles. Even when I used to do distance running and ultra marathons, I'd be running for a long time. So I'm like, I'm just going to smile at everybody. And some places are really good. Everyone smiles. And then there's some when I would be traveling, nothing. And I'd be like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why are they smiling back at me? Like, okay, well, but it's just different. I could just look like the weird person. That's all.
All right. I'm going to report back after tomorrow. I'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Also, I'll do the experiment once I move to Oklahoma. I'll do the experiment there and see if it's different than the suburbs of Chicago. We could write a paper on this, I think.
Probably. Yeah.
It's all about the publications. And last question, get to know you. How are you changing the world?
Thinking about that, trying to spread information, right? Trying to educate and as many people as possible in whichever way that can help this bubble. So it's one where I love digging around and finding that information in any way I can share it. Great. So it's from whether it's educating my officers on their injuries to educating athletic therapists so then they can help more people. That's my biggest one, is just educating as people as much as possible. And I'm not a big one where I don't ask questions. I'm very quiet. So when you see me at the NSCA event next month, like, I'm not one to talk, because I'm always listening and just absorbing, but then inside I'm putting stuff together on how can I get this to more people, right? So I just feel like the more people know, right, the more empowered we are and the more positive impact that we can have.
You're like the duck on the surface, gliding around. Underneath, swimming like crazy.
Yeah. You might even say swan.
You might say swan. Oh my God. I set myself up for that one. Although I don't know as much about like swan swimming as I do about ducks. Like,
maybe they're just slow and graceful. So maybe I am more of a duck. It's hard to say.
Hard to say. All right. So you have been at the Vancouver Police Department for over a decade now. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
I want to hear so many different ways we could go. Let's talk about, what did your position look like when you first took it? What did your day-to-day look like? What did you do?
Okay. Okay. So just, because I can't remember how much I've shared with you. So yeah, 13 and a half years at Vancouver. And I actually just started a new position at a different agency last week too. So we have
Yay.
transitions. Yeah. And to make it confusing for people, it's West Vancouver that I'm now at, but
Oh,
I'll talk about
crystal
Vancouver
clear.
to start off. Yeah, totally. So Vancouver, when I started there, was fitness coordinator position. So I managed 3 gym facilities at the time and curated strength and conditioning programs for individuals, did fitness testing, did the employment standard testing for our constables, our jail guards, our emergency response unit, so that's equivalent to SWAT, and our K9 teams, and general wellness. So, right as the name sounds, like fitness coordinator. However, when I started, and it was in September of 2010, there was an up-down table, so a treatment table in my office, and I asked about it because there had been some previous athletic therapists in my position, though they did not do athletic therapy per se. And I asked, like, if there's this table here, can I provide treatment? And so myself, an inspector in HR, and a staff sergeant in HR met to discuss what this would look like. And they're like, yes, let's do it. And we came up with this big plan of writing a different article each month to convince people to come in for free treatment. I never once wrote an article because as soon as we put free treatment out there, then I just started filling up with clients, right? Because they're like, great, this is great. And that's where having that on-site treatment just like took part. There was no big structure that we started with. It was just, I was naive, they were naive, but they're like, hey, let's try this and see what happens. And then it's morphed into something much bigger. So after a year, we reclassed my position into an athletic therapy position. And I was excited that they gave it that name, especially for my profession, because it gives us a new spot for work. And then in 2015, I found that my position didn't really fit where it was in the chain of command anymore. So it was part of training and recruiting, and there was a lot more wellness added in. So I actually requested it to be moved to HR, which was a different chain of command, because my strategic plan just lined up with theirs better. And that's when they created the athletic therapy and wellness unit. And so that was just myself for the first little bit. And then in 2016, we had a part-time physiotherapist and part-time fitness coordinator join because the workload was just growing so much. Since then, it grew to an additional athletic therapist in 2019. Unfortunately, COVID impacted that position a little bit, but then we were able to get that one back. And so then we had, I guess once I left VPD, my position had changed to the physical health and performance management specialist. And I oversaw 2 athletic therapists and a fitness coordinator. And we also, in 2022, started offering on-site physiotherapy and massage through extended benefits on site. So it had grown quite a bit in my 13 and a bit years there. Yeah.
And that's so exciting. But sometimes people kind of step back and they say, yeah, but that sounds like a big agency. So, how many officers or personnel were you sort of taking care of?
So that agency is a bigger one in Canadian standards, but not from American standards, from my understanding. So we had, I want to say, I could be 100 people off either way, about 1,800 sworn officers
Okay.
and about 300 or 400 civilians in
Okay.
just estimation. So over 2,000 between the two, which is pretty big, and multiple buildings. So we treated at 2 different locations. I worked at 3 that I'd rotate through. And then there's 2 other buildings aside, or 3 other ones aside from that. So our mounted unit, our K9 unit, and our tactical training center, which our new athletic therapists started doing treatments at. So it's growing and reaching out. Yeah. So
That's incredible. And then now that we know the size of the agency, I know the listener's next question is, yeah, but Canadian healthcare works a bit different than it does in the States. So, it doesn't seem like it would work for us. That's always the pushback. I don't think it'll work for us. But it works great. It works great, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And my team, so the athletic therapist and fitness coordinator, and my position at VPD are all paid by the department. So we're not getting compensated by workers' compensation or extend medical. The physiotherapy and massage, people can use their extend medical. So that's where some of that difference will be. But what our departments are looking at is they would support officers going for treatment on work time if that was when they could. But if they go off site, they're going to have to change. They're going to have to travel to that off site place, come back. And so we started looking at what was that travel time? How much lost work time are we saving just from travel? Or say they had a treatment in the afternoon, they wouldn't necessarily come back to work that day, just logistics, it wouldn't work. And that's where we started seeing, okay, no, there's cost savings here. And I remember, so back when I was on my own, just thinking about how many treatments. So say I did 16, saw 16 people that week. Travel times, the way things are, you're looking half an hour there, 16 hours a week, times that by just the lowest wage, which we usually don't see those. You start seeing that. So we started looking at numbers that way versus return on investments with workers' compensation. And that was enough. But also the feedback from members is what grew it. It was the members, so our members being the officers and civilian staff, pushing the chain of command and using it and demanding it. And when they saw that need continually grow and seeing how it can support their members, and even if it's just that sense that the organization supports them more, right? Because that's huge for wellness, is feeling that organizational sense of support. And that's what really helped grow it a lot. So it was more quantitative than qualitative data that actually grew it, I would say.
You are the second person that I've heard this from in the last 2 weeks. Michael Harper, I believe is his last name, from Texas. I just got we were at the same conference and we were both speaking, but he was talking about, data is important and tracking data is important. But he said doing those satisfaction surveys and getting people's feedback, even after little interventions like an 8-week weight loss or whatever you want to call it, getting that positive feedback goes a long way in supporting programs going forth. And that's what you're talking about too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And with it being more on the physical realm, and we see, at least I've been seeing a little bit more of that push for the mental health initiatives. That shows that support for it, right? Because even if their perspective of the workplace and that they're being supported in whichever way will help with their mental health, right? Yeah. So it just helps with so many different ways.
It is so incredibly important to feel supported at work. Like someone gives a damn. Just knowing that someone gives a damn makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And if you don't have that, you can go downhill pretty quick.
Yes. I wish we could bottle that feeling and sell it to the departments that don't have it.
Yeah. Right.
Here's your bottle of give a damn.
Yeah, totally.
So while you were with Vancouver PD, you grew to a larger staff than you had before. Your programming was growing. What other sort of initiatives, other than the treatments, and you mentioned the testing and the programming, did you have other initiatives that you ran for the officers during that time?
Let's see. I know there are, because they're always listed.
It's like,
but
lady,
you kind
it's
of
like 15
as
years.
You grow.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh man, now I know they're there because there was more than just that. But oh gosh, why
I'm
am I
putting you
drawing
on
a
the
blank
spot.
on this?
I'm totally putting you on the spot.
Well,
I know some agencies have done things like just as simple as like tracking your water consumption, tracking your steps, tracking your sleep, like little stuff like that, cholesterol testing. And those things seem to make a big difference too.
Yep. Yeah. And so we have those, and some of that is like thinking about some of the testing will be a bit through a different one, but some actually that now this is sparking it.
Yay.
Ones that we've done twice, because we look at our population and our average member age is in their 40s or above. And so something that we brought in twice was how to care for aging parents, because nobody tells you about this part of your life, right? And it is incredibly stressful, especially if you have to start looking into a private care home or a paid, like a public care home, and how to navigate those two or how to transition between them. And it is stressful. It's exhausting. You don't know how to use money in different directions. And that's not even factoring in what their condition might be. Like they might be healthy, but just aging, but they might have early onset dementia or Alzheimer's or cancer, right? There's all of these. And it's often an overlooked area of family wellness. We'll look at the family wellness with kids, which is really important. And how is that home life? But there's not enough talk about how we care for our parents, right? Because it's going to happen. And nobody has given you the heads up that there's a really challenging task coming in your future.
Dang it. That is one of the best initiatives I have ever heard. Writing it down.
Right.
You know,
Use
here's another suggestion. Perimenopause for the female officers. Good Lord.
We actually had some with that too.
Yes. That's amazing.
We had a series of different types of practitioners come in to speak about how they help. So a naturopath, a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner come in, nutritionist, and a personal trainer who focuses on those elements. Because once again, our population was in their 40s. And we're like, okay, this is real. And right when I left, there was, we started looking into more to do again, and then transitioned out. So I don't know where that is right now, but very important, right? But when we started looking on the second round, I actually asked one of my team, because he's male, I'm like, but what about men? I'm like, can you look into some testosterone? Like, what are some concerns there, right? Because we do have that focus on women. But I was curious in terms of, well, what about men, right? Because they're going to go through changes too, right? And it's not talked about a lot. So how can we help in that side too? But very real aspects, right? Because you just feel like you finally figured out your body, and then it swings around and you're like, what is this? Like, I just got used to everything, and now it's a curveball again.
You're on the Aladdin magic carpet, and then whoosh, the carpet is pulled out from underneath you, and you're laying on the back, looking at the sky. Oh my gosh. So before we leave Vancouver Police Department and move on to West Vancouver, is there anything that we should, I know that while you were there, you became a trauma resiliency peer trainer, and I definitely want to talk about that. But is it probably best to talk about that now or after West Vancouver? What do you think?
I think probably now, right? Because I've had 6 shifts at West Van, so that's going to be a smaller story.
That'll be a very small discussion.
So, very exciting, but it'll be a smaller conversation. I don't have quite so many years of stuff behind there.
Yeah. So listeners, if you heard the episode with Anna August, it was maybe 6 weeks ago now, we talked a little bit about trauma-informed care, and we talked about how Becky and Anna have collaborated. So now I want to hear the story from your standpoint.
Yeah. So 2021 was when my focus as an athletic therapist completely took a turn, all for the positive. So my sergeant at the time, my team joined the peer support and CISM teams in 2019 to become the employee wellness unit. And then we had a sergeant overseeing us. And he knows I'm a learner. He knows I love information. And he also knows that through all the years, I have developed a really strong, trusting relationship with our officers. So officers trust me. They'll come and talk to me. I am treated as one of the fellow officers. Like, they have absorbed me into the family. And he said, well, we're having a program come where we're training about 20 officers here through Wounded Warriors Canada called Trauma Resiliency Training. And he asked if I'd like to do it. And it's 3 days. And I was like, yes, I'd love to learn more information. He's like, great. So we did the 3 days, and there might have been about 3 civilians out of the 20. And I just remember the first day, completely ignorant about trauma in terms of the bigger picture. And I remember them asking, like, okay, we're going to go around in a circle and I want you to talk about how trauma has impacted you. And I have homicide detective to one side and I have like forensic officer to the other side. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh,
I
like,
broke
what
my
am I
leg when I was
doing
6.
here? Right? Like, what? I don't know if trauma has impacted me. I'm like, oh, but I learned no, trauma has impacted everybody through these
Yes.
years, right? And so that course, what's interesting with it is it talks about what a traumatic exposure is and how a traumatic exposure does not necessarily cause traumatization to somebody. And certain things have to happen for that traumatic exposure to cause a traumatization that gets stuck in the nervous system. So you have to be exposed. Your brain must go into that limbic process and be not finish processing it. And then the third part of the equation is there must be a negative social connection to it. So that can be somebody saying, "Why did you do that?" Or "What were you thinking during that time?" Or "Why did I do that?" without somebody helping me reframe that. Or "What did I do to cause that?" Or silence. And I remember when they said that, like saying some of that, we're like, oh gosh, like how many people have we impacted from this, right? And they're like, but you don't know. You don't know. So don't worry about that. But now, going forward that we want to be very mindful about what we say to somebody after they've been exposed to something and their body is processing that stressor, because you can positively impact them and decrease the chances of that becoming traumatization. And that was a huge aha for me. I was like, I need to get this out to athletic therapists because we're on the field when something significant happens. But then also, I want to learn more because I'm working with trauma exposed people. So I want to make sure that I am helping as much as possible when I'm treating them and decrease the chances of me unknowingly impacting how they might be healing from a traumatic exposure. And so that just started a deep dive down into learning about trauma for myself. And I just found it fascinating. So I took several trauma-informed training courses so I know how to implement it into my practice as an athletic therapist and strength coach. And actually, I should backtrack a little bit. Right after that course, we do POPAT training practices. So that's the agility course that they need to get onto the job. And my fitness coordinator had come back from a testing one day and she said, okay, there was this one person who ran it and they didn't pass, but they're going to come into practice next week. They should be able to do it. But they said that they saw a fatal accident the other week. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, wow, I'm glad I know this information now in terms of the trauma resiliency. And when I saw this individual run, you can tell that they're strong and everything. So they should have no problem with it. But I've never seen movement like that before. You could tell their nervous system was just off, was just going in all different directions is the best way to describe it. And the old me, meaning before the trauma resiliency training, I might have asked like, hey, so what was going through your mind during the course? Like, how come you were struggling here and there? Because you're very strong. You should be able to do this, maybe do some breathing, which because that exposure was so recent, that could have had a very negative impact on them. But instead, I came more from that place from curiosity and support and was able to have a great talk with him afterwards. And he's on the job now too. But it was having all that information now, I knew that I was having a positive impact versus unknowingly having that negative impact, if that makes sense.
It makes a tremendous amount of sense. And I feel like even our fire officers and our police sergeants, supervisors, let's just say supervisors in public safety, could probably benefit a lot from this course.
Yeah.
Because one of the most traumatic calls of my career, within 45 minutes, I was being questioned about my decisions. And why did you do that? And why did you choose to do that? Wow.
Yeah. And so this peer-based training program, they have the 20 of us trained, and then we go to different units to educate everybody on it, right? So they get it at the academy level. We've slowly been able to get it out to more teams just so it becomes more common knowledge. And so people start pausing and thinking, okay, how can I reframe this? Or just not ask right now, right? Because there's a time and a place. And so I remember during the course, they were talking about the flipped lid model. And I don't know if Anna talked to you about the flip
I
lid
don't,
model.
I don't think so.
So it's with Dan Siegel, and it just talks about how the hand, you can look at it as a model of the brain, right? So you have
Oh,
the wrist,
yes,
which
yes,
is the
yes.
brain stem, right? Where your thumb is in the middle is the limbic system, and then your fingers going over top in a fist is your executive functioning. And when you get a stressor that overwhelms your system, where you can no longer function, you flip your lid, right? So that means your fingers go up, kind of like in that holding up four fingers position, to show, okay, the executive functioning is no longer online and you're just in that survival mode, right? Your lizard brain is just going nuts. And so they were
Yes.
like, wouldn't it be great if after a call on the road, you could just use that flip lid signal to people and be like, are you here or are you a closed lid? If you're open lid, we're not going to talk about it right now. Take care of yourself. But once you're closed lid, when the executive functioning is back online and you can think properly, now we can go over what happened during the call.
Oh my goodness. This is so important for hands-on people, for athletic trainers and physical therapists and even strength coaches. But I think it's so important for supervisors.
Yes. Yeah,
Who did you say you
absolutely.
took it from? Wounded Warrior?
Wounded Warriors Canada.
I wonder if we have that in the US. I mean, I know we have Wounded Warriors, but I don't know if we have this program.
Yeah, check and see. And Tim Black, who's one of the creators, he was in Victoria on the coast here, and he's now working. I think he was at the university. Now he's working just with Wounded Warriors, I believe. Was part of the developing for it, and yeah, some of the stuff that he looks at for first responders is great. And he's the first one who exposed me to calling them more trauma exposed professionals too. So I'm trying to use that term more just to help educate anybody I'm talking about too. So they realize, okay, yeah, they're trauma exposed. And it's one where I like the sound of it in the sense of it doesn't mean they've been impacted, right? It's not an injury, but it just shows, yes, like our nurses, our doctors, our fires, our paramedics, they're trauma exposed. We need to be aware of that and keep that into account when we're working with them.
I'm totally going to change my phrasing for my talk tomorrow
Nice.
because I say we take civilians and then we sleep deprive them and they are traumatized. But no, they are trauma exposed.
There we go. Use it.
Oh my gosh. I love learning. This is so amazing. So you are more or less through this trauma resiliency peer program, you're kind of touching, or you were touching all of the officers at Vancouver Police Department, at least indirectly, because you were kind of like spider webbing this training out to the department.
Yeah, it's for me, because it was slow to get delivered at the department, just layers. You know how it is with bureaucracy and police department.
Yes.
So we're getting it out as much as we can, but then at the individual level, that's where I've probably talked with more people about it. And after that, that's also when I did the deep dive. All of my presentations for the past, since 2022 have all been trauma informed. So in 2022, I presented at the World Congress for the World Federation of Athletic Therapy and Training on Trauma Informed Athletic Therapy. At the TSAC conference, Anna and I talked about, helping the nervous system through lifting heavy things. Mm-hmm. And then this past November, I talked on trauma-informed weightlifting at a conference that Vancouver Police put on. So, and then we did it at ISCP too, Tracy and Anna and I. And so I'd say it's been more that way. Once again, finding that information and how many different places can I share it? And the feedback that we have gotten at each one, there's always been thank you, this is what we need. Like, I knew there was something, or people just seem to connect with what we're saying, and that's when I feel like there's a big aha, is when you're not telling them what to think, you're just sharing, and you see that light bulb go on and their eyes widen, and you see, oh, this has hit a spot for them, right? Like, they have seen themselves in something that I've said, and that's something that will stick with them too.
Well, also great news. As I opened my email one of the days this week, Tuesday, I think, I saw that the talk that you just referenced with Anna at Tactical Annual was available as a continuing education for NSCA members. So if any of my
Awesome.
listeners are certified with NSCA, you can watch the talk and then take a little quiz and get yourself some CEUs. I think it's 0.3, maybe 0.2. Isn't that cool?
Love it. Love it. I hope it becomes more common language, and even how much Anna and I have learned since that time, in Tracy, and you can only share so much information in an hour, right? So it's how else can we get more of this out there, and more information, and using movement and the weight room and hands-on therapy to help a limbic response, or help just improve that resiliency so they can take on bigger stressors. And that can be for anybody, like we're all just society, news, information. There's so much information coming in now. It's something everybody can benefit from. So.
Well, and I was at the talk, but I'm going to rewatch it because it's been a while and it was a good one. So I'm excited.
Thank you.
So let me hear a little bit about your new position. What are you doing? What's going on? How many officers? Tell me all the deets.
Okay. So it is a big change, yet very, very similar. So let's see, I'm going from that large department that we talked about to the numbers as of yesterday, with a new person coming in, almost, not quite, but almost 80 officers.
Amazing.
And we're just over 100, I believe, with civilians, and that's including casuals. So smaller department. So people who say, oh, that's a big department, of course you can have something like that. Here is a small department who has brought me in for wellness. So super excited about this opportunity, because it's not as common for small agencies, and especially athletic therapy in police departments. It's not as common up here as it is down in the States. It's just slower to grow. And that's one of my bigger goals, is to get athletic therapy into more tactical settings. When I kind of first set that goal, it didn't mean me getting into more police departments, but it's just how it's rolling out, right? And so I get to start it right from the ground up. So you can take those lessons learned throughout the experience. And I love what I created at the VPD, and I hope it keeps going strong. But you learn things, being like, oh, if I reround, it would be good now knowing this, I would go that way, right? And so the first 6 days that I've had, so I did 2 days last week, had to go to a conference, and then I did my 4 days this week. We're setting up some of those really good foundational things, just checking it off. So making sure that that foundation is set up strong, and then treatments will start on Tuesday, because we're on a holiday on Monday. So it'll still be pretty quick. And so what we're starting off with is the strength and conditioning aspect, and on-site rehabilitation. But then we'll be looking at the wellness elements I have there, and I want to see where there's some holes and what else can we put in there, right? And so to me, that's exciting. We can see what the needs are and really start at that foundational level and put in a brick, make sure it's nice and stabilized, and then another one, right? And really just build it from scratch. And what is exciting with this is, with VPD, there was various different elements growing up in their own silos. So then when that happens, it's really hard to join them back together and get them functioning without kind of stopping and pausing, right? So I had the athletic therapy developing in one area, mental health was growing in another area, health and safety in another area, and disability management in another area. And then it's hard to bring them together. Whereas here, I'll be start right off with HR. That's the unit that I'm in. And how am I helping return to work? And so my first person, we already booked return to work person, right? And so it'll be great to be able to capture some of that information that, because of the way it was formed in my previous position, we just couldn't capture it as easy. So it's exciting to see for that. And the smaller size, we'll be able to get to know everybody's names more. One thing I'm thrilled about is it's dog friendly. So my dog got to come yesterday. So good way to meet people when they find there's a dog in the building. So, but yeah.
And do you think, how do I phrase this? Public safety to some extent is a little bit of monkey see, monkey do, meaning when an agency sees something working, it's in place in another agency, they're more apt to say, oh, that could work here. And it is very much a smaller agency, but do you think that because they saw what the bigger agency was successfully doing with more people, did they kind of consider it more like, yeah, this might fit us?
You know what? I'm not sure if it was seeing what's been at the VPD and how it functioned, or it was learning what I have done,
Yeah.
right? Because it's one where they had reached out to learn more kind of about what I've done, and I got to learn some of what they were doing, and they were intrigued. But what they really want to do, so West Van, is they really are, how can we really provide exceptional wellness support to our employees? And they had some good initiatives already that I'd learned, and I was like, oh, this is great. And what I liked was I saw some creativity with thinking outside the box. That's the way my brain goes too. I'm not great at structures. So any program that is in terms of a process, I'm like, but step one, and then maybe there's like 5 different branches depending on what's going on. So I'm not great with strict structures. I'm better when we take it one step, see what are the options, think broader, what's possible, and then go from there. And so that intrigued me. Yeah. So yeah, and choosing it, like, as anyone can imagine, when you treat people, and I'm sure this is the same for any of the firefighters you've worked with and helped, you get attached to people, right? And so I absolutely love all of my VPD, sworn, and civilian staff, and so it was hard to make that switch, but good for my growth and good for my health too. Just looking at years down the road too, right? And I'm a high needs learner, so I need challenge and growth, and yeah, it looked like a good opportunity to take a chance on.
It sounds like such an amazing opportunity. I know you're going to crush it. And I've been dying since we logged on. I've been dying because I can see the painting behind your ponytail.
Which one?
Of your dog. Is that your dog?
Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. So she passed away in August.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
She was just shy of 15. So she had an extraordinary life. And my in-laws had a relative draw that for me. So that's her picture. So beautiful. Anyone, I guess, because this is in video, she was a Husky Shepherd Border Collie. Super confident girl who followed me everywhere in the forest. And now my new girl is a 7-month-old Dane Mastiff who is already 78 pounds. So very different.
Oh my gosh.
She'll be about 140, 160. So she's going to be huge, and yeah, very, very different animal.
This is my second interview today. I just hung up with Fernando Montes before you, and he just got a puppy, and I already forgot what he told me it was, but it is ginormous. 2 big dog days. Okay.
Yeah.
And how often will you be taking, first of all, your new dog's name is?
Mabel.
I love it.
Yeah.
How often will Mabel be going to work with you?
We'll see, right? Because as she gets bigger, it's going to be tighter in my office, which will be the treatment space. But according to people I was talking to yesterday, and the amount that came to meet her, everyone's like, oh, well, she can just stay in my office. She can just stay in my office. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, hopefully a few times, as often as I can, but we'll figure it out as we go. But it sounds like a lot of people bring their dogs around. So yeah, hopefully she'll be in there a lot. And she did well. So you can imagine at 7 months, they are testing boundaries and stuff like that. And she was super, super well behaved. And so loved meeting everybody. She's a little shy, so it takes a little bit. The first officer she saw was a really tall one, and she hadn't seen a uniform yet. So she let out some woofs, and it's very deep woof with her breed. But everyone just crouched down and was good. So she was able to get comfortable pretty quick. Yeah. But it's good for wellness, right? It's absolutely good for 100%.
Wellness. And I always like to say, like, I'm like a puppy. I'm one treat away from being your best friend. So act accordingly. Okay, so we got to the dog thing, which is just a priority with me. So I want to ask you, Usually I say, do you have any parting words of advice or kind of some good tidbits? But I'm going to switch the question up just a little bit for you. And I'm going to say, do you have any words of wisdom for agencies out there that are kind of just thinking, yeah, this sounds great, but I just don't think we can do it here?
I would say, let's see here. You don't have to think big right away. Just think small. And you can keep it simple with a contract, right? Where it doesn't have to be too complex. Have somebody come in and find one element for them to help with, something that they can track with them. So whether it's, feedback from people, or it is that injury rehab aspect where it's return on investment, but just one small thing. But in terms of keeping it small too, is get feedback from your employees on what they want, because as great as the idea might sound, if it's not what they need, they're not going to use it. And that's something that I've even said about this new spot is I don't have a plan going in because I need to understand the people and what they need first, right? The strength and conditioning and treatment, easy because I can do it. But in terms of other wellness initiatives, well, what do they want? Because I can come up with this elaborate plan. It can be great and scientifically supported. But if it doesn't match what they want and need, no one's going to use it and won't be successful. So listen to your staff and what they are asking for.
So good. And you can start small. Start small and start significant. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So good. Well, I think, unless there's anything else that I forgot to ask you about, I'm pretty sure that we can probably just drop the mic right there because this has been an amazing discussion. What do you think?
I think that sounds good. This has been absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. So, well, I've had now the trifecta. Tracy's episode, at the time we're recording right now, Tracy's episode will come out in a couple days. We have Anna.
Perfect.
Now we've had Becky, and we're going to try to figure out how to get all three of y'all on together. Good luck with that scheduling.
We've done it. We can do it.
It can be done.
It can be done.
Becky, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for your time. And AZ and Becky Duck/Swan are officially out.